here to listen to one application this evening. We will review it with respect to appropriateness in terms of context and design. We will not be looking at issues of zoning and the like. So we will go to the applicant, and we will then hear from the public, and we will then hear from the committee, and we will create a resolution and vote upon it. So is the applicant here?
Yes. One second,
Okay.
do you want me to give the introduction?
Oh, yes, you should please give your regular introduction. I'm so used to having Jane do this introduction that I forgot that you do part of the introduction.
No problem. Good evening, everyone. A few notes for you if this is your first meeting with us. You'll notice that you are muted and unable to mute yourself. After the presentation, the co-chairs may call on members of the public who wish to speak. You can be asked to be recognized by raising your virtual hand, You can do that by going to the reactions button at the bottom of your screen and selecting raise hand. It's important not to raise your physical hands or wave at the screen because we may not be able to see you among the participants. If you are on the phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9 and *6 to unmute. Once you're recognized by the co-chair, I will unmute you, and you may be prompted to confirm unmuting on your device. If you're using an older version of Zoom, you can access the raise hand feature by clicking the participants button on the menu at the bottom of your screen and selecting raise hand. The chat function is available for technical support only, not to ask questions of the co-chairs. You can send me a chat if you're having any trouble, and I can walk you through that. And with that, I'll pass the mic back to you, David.
Thank you, and I will invite the architect for tonight to please come on board and make a presentation.
Okay.
I do have to announce that our one item tonight is 21 East 63rd Street, Upper East Side Historic District, Barry Ludlow Architect, a Beaux-Arts style row house designed by Buckman and Fox and constructed circa 1884. Application is to modify the entry to provide ADA access and alter the flanking non-historic openings at the areaway. Okay, and with that, I will turn it over to the architect.
Great. David, thank you. This is Cass Stackelberg of Higgins, Grace, Barth, and Partridge. It's nice to be with you all this evening. And I'm joined by Vincent Icabellis, who's a principal at Design Republic and Barry Ludlow's partner at the firm. I'm going to do most of the presentation, though Vincent will provide some information about some of the code requirements and also available to answer any questions about design detailing, et cetera. So with that, I think I will pull up our presentation and begin the show.
The only thing I will ask of you is, since
of course
I do have to take notes, that you don't go too quickly.
Okay, that's a good reminder. I will do my best. Terrific. Okay, everybody can see our title slide with a site map and overall photograph of the building.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, terrific. Great. Very good. Well, thank you. And thank you for the introduction. The project site, as discussed, is 21 East 63rd Street in the Upper East Side Historic District. It's located on the north side between Madison and Fifth Avenue. It's 25-foot wide historic row house just off the corner of Madison. And there's an overall photograph of the building here on the left. And as described in the introduction, the property is a commercial building, but presently the building is not accessible. It does not meet the ADA requirements. And as part of the new uses for the building, which will continue to be commercial, but with retail use of the ground floor, there, of course, is a need to make the building accessible. And in addition, there's also a requirement that a second means of egress be provided. So that is the gist. That is the scope. The requirements that bring forward the project to us today. And what you'll see in the presentation materials that we're going to share with you is that the base of this building, which from this photograph looks like it might be historic, actually has seen a tremendous amount of change. All the work that we are proposing, or none of the work that we are proposing, impacts any of the historic fabric of the building. I'll also mention that as part of this overall project, we're working with Landmark staff on a range of other items that the staff will be reviewing, including masonry repair and restoration, replacing rooftop mechanical units, in-kind window replacement, and other sort of building enhancements and improvements. But what's before you and going to a public hearing next month are just changes at the base of the ground floor on the street facade. A detailed photograph of that existing condition. As I mentioned, everything basically from the base of these brackets down to the sidewalk is all circa 1990s material. None of it is historic, and we'll share images that illustrate that progression that brought us to what is there today. So a series of historic photographs: 1910, the 1940s tax photo, and then these two photos on the right half of the screen are images from the Landmarks Preservation Commission archives from the time of designation. So historically, you can see the building here, which is a reclad, reconstructed row house. You've seen many examples of this in the Upper East Side Historic District. It was reclad in 1900 to the designs of Buckman and Fox. And you can see the original condition had the entry on the easternmost bay up a few steps with two double hung windows at the center bay and the left bay, or the westernmost bay. This is a detailed view. This is the tax photo of actually this building, but you can see here clearly two windows. There was a little canopy over the raised entry. I think it's also worth noting the upper floors of the building were articulated historically from 1900 forward with these very large glass 1/1 windows. So there was a lot of transparency, particularly on the upper floors, but at the base as well. The 1981 black and white landmarks photo, but more clearly the 1983 landmarks color photo, illustrate the changes that occurred around 1980 when the base of the building was altered significantly to accommodate a different commercial use at the ground floor. The whole building had been converted to commercial use in 1947, but the base of the building was completely altered in 1980, just prior to designation. So again, this sort of progression, the 1940 tax photo showing the 1900 infill designed by Buckman and Fox, the 1983 designation photo, and then the current photo. So what appears to be a sort of historicizing or historic base actually is all fairly contemporary material. And some details just illustrating some of those elements, excuse me, up at the the brackets that support the balcony at the second floor. You can see those elements, some of the stucco that was installed between those when the modifications were made. This transom window above this new canopy, and then some of the work, the ironwork, limestone and granite at the base of the building, all circa 1990s. And then some details at the sidewalk plane where the raised stoop is. When you start looking at these photographs, you begin to actually notice that this is unfortunately sort of more recent construction, not particularly high quality construction. The dimensions of the granite, you can see here, the steps, the treads of the steps are actually quite thin and have cracked and spalled. You can see caulk and other elements that speak to this sort of more contemporary nature of the construction. As part of the work proposing, as you'll see in just a moment, we're going to be redoing this with much heavier dimensional stone and improving the details that exist today. A photograph on the left and a rendering on the right. We'll sort of start here to give you the big picture and then share with you details so you get a sense of what we're proposing. So again, the work is occurring here at the base of the building. That's the work that's in front of you, the base of the building. And the proposal is to remove the steps and the areaway, again, 1990s construction, bring the doors down to grade. So there's an at-grade entry. You can see the steps that are now interior, and you'll see in plan in just a moment that there's a lift that would bring patrons, visitors, the public up to the first level, the raised first level. And then in this bay here, there's an egress door that provides a legal second means of egress out of the cellar. And Vincent will take you through some of those requirements and how we're solving for them. And you'll see sort of to manage and negotiate the increase in height with these lower doors, we're introducing these sort of clear story transom windows, which you'll see in a moment are actually elements that are not atypical for the district and do find their way into historic facades seen elsewhere in the district. So we think this is a thoughtful and appropriate approach to solving for the code requirements that are required in order to make this building useful again. So just turning to some of the other buildings in the district that sort of informs that clear story treatment. So you can see just a handful that are here: 41 East 67th Street, reconstructed facade here from 1910 with a raised stoop, and then these taller windows with this sort of clear story or transom window with a limestone band dividing that opening. Similarly, this is a complete reclad of a earlier row house from the 1870s. This was done by CPH Gilbert in 1900. So again, sort of using limestone to divide the scale of these larger windows adjacent to the entry. And then another example, a slightly stylistically different example, but again, using limestone adjacent to these larger grand openings to mediate between these transom openings and the service doors or egress doors. So turning back to the line drawings, on the left is the existing building elevation, on the right is the proposed, and in the center is the proposed without an awning, and then in the right is the elevation, the proposed elevation with awnings. We are proposing fabric awnings at these two flanking entries, both the egress door and the window to the left, and then the center entry at the middle of the bay. And just turning to the plan, just to illustrate the changes that are being made there. Vincent, would you like to pick up here?
Sure. Thank you, Kaz, and good evening, all. As Kaz indicated, one of the primary drivers for this property is to provide accessibility into the space in a very sensitive manner, where we're not detracting from the ornateness of the building, and also accommodating the access point within a foyer area. So if you look at the enlarged image to the right, upon entry at grade, you'll see that we've added the 4 exterior steps to the interior, and to the left of the stair access, we have a lift, enclosed lift. And as Kaz mentioned, one of the requirements was to improve the egress out of the building and discharge directly out. And with a single stair core, the logical approach was to create a transfer corridor. So the stair actually goes to the cellar through a transfer corridor that's rated, comes back up and out on the right hand easternmost bay, which we're proposing to convert as a egress passageway. And with that egress passageway, we're also being sensitive with the facade and creating that balance of window and door. So without the visual of a door handle, it would resemble and reflect what you're seeing on the westernmost bay, which is a window. Kaz, can you just go back to that image just to show the comparison? So if you look at the center image proposed without awnings, you can see that within the planters, visually speaking, standing in front of the building, both west and east bay are symmetrical in design. One of the elements that we'd like to introduce is the canvas awnings. We feel that it adds a little bit of texture to the facade. It also grounds and creates almost a compression zone because of the height of the entry, and we reduce the exterior step conditions. We feel that it's an appropriate balance within the immediate area. The Goyard building directly across the street on the southern side of 63rd Street is a perfect example of that application of awning. The doors, beyond the step condition, the doors requires a compliance as well. So we have to play with the width of the door. So where we had two symmetrical doors to accommodate our ADA clearance, we're proposing to have an ADA accessible door width with a operable door leaf, which is set in the fixed position and only utilized when necessary for moving furniture or large objects within the only means of entering the store and access to the elevator, which would get you access to the upper commercial floors.
Let me go to the elevation. So this is an existing elevation, just illustrating obviously the steps and the elements at the entry, and then a proposed elevation, which I think maybe more clearly illustrates this the slight asymmetry that's required for these doors. So this right leaf is the code compliant width, and then this operable side light to the left. The egress door here, show window here. We're proposing just a minimum amount of signage. There are 2 plaque signs that would flank the entry. These are 9 inches tall by 29 inches in length. The letters themselves are 3 inches tall or 3.5 inches tall. And in addition, we're proposing signage up on the front edge of the canopy as well. These are just thin dimensional brass letters. The letter up on the canopy is 2.5 inches, and I mentioned the ones here are 3.5 inches in height. And a comparable elevation that may sort of illustrate sort of how we're addressing the changes in scale at the base and accommodating the grade change. And again, the awnings here, as Vincent said, to sort of bring the ground floor down a bit and to provide a sort of separate zone at that base. A series of sections. I might go through these a little bit more if you'd like to focus on any of the details. This is a section through the existing window presently, which will serve as a show window, but we're lowering the sill a little bit to provide a view from the street into this sort of foyer area. The section at the main entry. So again, currently you go up these steps to get to this level, and then another set of steps to get to the elevator on the interior, and the proposal at grade, which will take you to a short lift and then to the building elevator. And the eastern bay through the window, again, this sort of raised sill condition well above the sidewalk, and then the at grade egress with the figure shown here on its way out the door. So this provides at grade egress out of the cellar as a second means of egress. You can see the awning shown in section here as well as the other bay. Some detailing showing how the limestone cladding will be treated at those transom or clear story windows. The door section with a header, which manages to bring the scale down from the transom and the door, and then through the egress door, a similar limestone header separating the clear story or transom from the egress door itself. Details of the granite at the areaway and planter area. Section detail for the fabric awning, compliant with landmark staff rules with a loose skirt weighted at the bottom, and proper angle signage only on the skirt if the tenant chooses. And then some enlarged details of the sign here, as I mentioned, 29 inches in length and 9 inches in height. The letters themselves in brass, they'll be applied onto a dark painted metal panel. The letters are 3¼ inches in height, and then the small letters at the canopy above the entry at 2.5 inches, same material. Some door details. These will all be painted metal doors, painted black, brass door hardware, and then decorative grille work up in the transoms, as well as around the egress door and the store window to give the infill a bit of texture and scale. And then some details of the metalwork, the ironwork around the planter areaway. So we've got standard railings, and then here where the egress door is, there's almost like a gate that will allow for access out from that egress door. And then just returning back to the existing photo on the left and the rendered view on the right. Obviously, this is coming about because of need to bring the building up to code. There is no historic fabric impacted as part of this proposal. It's a building that has had significant changes already carried out across the base. And we think this is a thoughtful and appropriate approach to bringing some new life to this wonderful historic building. So with that, I'm happy to take questions if you have any. Hear your comments.
The railings are made out of a
I
cast
believe they're
iron.
iron.
Cast iron.
I'm not sure, David, if they'll be cast iron or wrought iron, but iron for sure.
Well,
Historically,
probably-
these would have been wrought iron.
Probably wrought iron.
Yeah.
We're dealing with cast iron these days. In any event, thank you for a good presentation.
Yes.
We'll open it up to the public. Does anyone from the public like to comment or ask a question?
We have no raised hands from the public.
We'll go to the committee. Please take it alphabetically. We'll start at the end. We'll go backwards this time for a change.
Okay. Let's start with Christina Davis. Christina, confirm unmuting. Remember, it's *6 to unmute. Go ahead, Christina. Hi.
I go last as the public member.
Okay. Marco, confirm unmuting.
Thank you. I understand that this building has been several modifications on the front facade, especially where are you proposing the work. So the original do not exist properly. And now your proposal maintains symmetry and maintain context within the historical districts, especially what it is the transom windows on the two flanks of the main entrance. Everything looks fine for me. I'm not sure, honestly, the windows, the doors, the main doors, I find it a little bit poor in relation with the richness that the facade has. And in relation with the existing doors, I know that it's not original too. Yes, you need the second means of egress from the cellar, and I think that approach is perfectly fine. And the awnings, the flank awnings, I find too excessive, but the rest pretty much, I like that you preserve the main canopy, which is gorgeous. And I think that will be my comments. Thank you.
Sarah, confirm unmuting.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for this presentation. I apologize for joining a bit late. So I may have missed the explanation for the ironwork on the original or on the existing front door and windows. The decision on why it's not being replicated in the proposed design, please.
Ask if you want to answer that.
Sure. Vincent, do you want to?
Sure,
I'll take
sure.
a crack. Yeah, whichever.
So it's
Either of you.
I'll start with the existing doors are obviously are not original doors. There is ornateness to the doors. There's also when we're dealing with ADA and the overall clearance of the opening of the entry opening is 5'10", right? Those doors the existing doors are over 4 inches thick, and the decorative metal applied to the exterior creates almost a door within a door. So there are operable hinges on the interior that allows the glass to open for cleaning purposes. Because it's overly ornate, there's no way you could maintain that door given the height, and taking the operational aspect of the maneuverability of the door into consideration, our approach was to simplify the doors, so that A, we are compliant, and B, we can keep to the metal work of the door rather than start investigating perhaps maybe a lighter weight alloy, which in all intents and purposes would not look as original as possible. So the approach and proposal was to go a little bit refined and clean line for the entry doors because of the sheer nature of having them to be operable, and limit the ornateness to the surround, which is replicated from the original doors. Kaz, can you bring up, I believe it's sheet 25? Yeah, here you go. So if you look at this drawing, you'll look at the detail along the perimeter of the fenestration and the egress door itself. Those dimensions are taken from the existing, what you see now, the existing decorative metalwork. We just eliminated the center portion of the wrought iron ornateness for a couple of reasons. Outside of the ability to clean the door and to minimize the weight of the door, there's also a practicality of having a visual into the space. We're dealing with a split level, so the ground floor really isn't the ground floor. It's actually raised, and we're approximately 10 steps into the space. And what we've noticed, the more opportunity we have to just provide some level of transparency within reason was the appropriate approach, and hopefully you'll see it while understanding the drivers behind the design intent.
Thank you for that, and thanks for pointing out the detail in the new design. I wasn't able to tell from that final the picture that we had up before.
Right, this rendering, yes.
The
Yeah.
rendering, yes. Thank you. Thanks for that word.
Yeah, perhaps I can zoom into this perhaps a bit.
Oh, yes.
there you go.
Okay.
Sorry, apologies.
Okay. This is very
Yeah.
helpful. And I just, I realize that there is a big change that's happening to the front elevation. But in terms of designing a solution to the need for equitable access to the building, I thought that this was very thoughtful. So, so thank you for this presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alita?
Thank you. I agree that it's a really thoughtful way of creating an accessible entry and the double and the additional egress. But I have to say that and I understand your explanation, but I think maybe you could do better. It looks as though the first floor with the doors and the clear story don't belong to the same building as the richly embellished, beautiful detailing on the upper floors, starting with those the brackets, and that's a shame. I have to say I'm thrilled that Lalique is moving in there, and the windows, the details seem to do it justice, but those two front doors are so plain and ordinary looking that they really detract. I mean, if you look at the building to the western, just right next door, the little bit that we see, there's so much to those windows with the multi-paned and the arches and the circles in there. I don't know all of the terminology, that it just seems to be, and please forgive me, just a cheap addition to the building. So, and then I'm just a little confused about the awning over the main entrance, if you don't mind answering that. Did you say that is that what's there now, but it's not the original
Correct.
canopy?
Right. So just a couple of points. So yeah, this canopy over the entry is from the 1990s. It's existing, and we do not intend to change it. I think Vincent mentioned, sort of what the desire is to have more glass in these doors to provide some daylighting as deep into the space as possible. But one thing I'll point out, and I'm glad you brought this up, because it's something that we've talked internally as a team quite a bit about the doors and the sort of transparency versus the sort of closed-in nature of what's there today. I think what's interesting for me in part, 21 East 63rd versus 19 East 63rd. This building historically, 21, was designed with these very large 1/1 windows. There was a desire to have sort of all the texture be in the masonry. So the cartouches, the pediments, the balustrades, these heavy brackets, all of that was sort of the embellishments were part of the masonry. And the windows on the front facade were originally, and I can go back to the historic photos, but they were 1/1 windows historically. So there is a sort of an effort toward transparency with the fenestration. And even at the ground floor, the windows historically at the ground floor were 1/1 windows. And that's compared, for instance, as you point out, to the windows that are at the adjacent building. And so this was a decision of the original architect when the building was converted. And so for us, the sort of more the glassiness of the doors, while it is sort of a contemporary reading, it is actually consistent with the way the fenestration is handled at this building in particular. So we think it's actually an acceptable way of treating these doors for the front of the building.
Yeah, no, thank you for explaining that. I always think 1/1 are replacement windows, like in my
Yeah.
building. So I'm glad to see
Yeah.
that. Still,
Yeah,
the vast expanse of glass with the size of those doors just looks, it just feels, it looks wrong. Maybe there's a way to divide them even in half or 4 pieces or something like that to have just a little bit more, because right now I understand the desire for the transparency, but it just looks like something that was stuck in there not to spend a lot of money. I know that that's not true, but that's just the image that I have. I like what you did with the outside of the side, the window and the egress door, and above the clear story, but those 2 main doors, which is really what draws your eye because they're so large, just look too modern to me. But thank you very much. It was a good presentation. It's a beautiful building.
Yeah, I'd also like to make the point that by doing what we're doing internally to accommodate the lift, the window to the westernmost bay, you're not getting a lot of natural light into the core of the space because it's actually blocked by an ADA elevator, right?
Yeah.
And the window to the east bay is now segregated with a rated separation between the store. So we're not getting any natural light there either. So really the only opportunity to get any sort of natural light and to mitigate any sort of cavernous effect to the inner core of the space on an elevated first level is to really consider as much of an openness, and perhaps maybe we can take it under advisement. We could add some detail along the perimeter, but the proposal would be to try to pull as much natural light as possible, as well as being sensitive to the ornateness and the delicate detailing of the door itself. I can assure you that what we do here will be first rate in terms of its execution. So I think we could certainly take that under advisement.
Thank you. I'd like to just see something a little bit more embellished without limiting the light, but thank you very much for your explanations.
Yes, I've been unmuted. Yeah, this is Michelle. Can you go back to the rendering of the existing and the proposed? Yeah, I too had a lot of trouble looking at this. To me, it seems, number one, that the transoms are too far separated from the door. So to me, they're looking like they're just floating out there for no apparent reason. And I understand the ADA requirement, but I'm not sure, to my mind, that the most successful solution was to bring the steps inside a front door that's now flush with the street. It seems to me that because that front door historically was further to the side and was not exactly center, that you could use that side areaway to have a very successful ramp to make it handicap accessible to the top of a stair, to the top of the stairs, and have a window exist where that ramp is, and or the egress door on that side or the other side. You're the architect, so I would leave that up to you. But to my mind, by removing the stairs, which you say you had to do for handicap accessibility, I don't believe that that was the only solution. And to my mind, it created more issues for you on the interior, like limiting sunlight or daylight or any light, because had those doors been above the steps, you were getting light into the interior. So I'm not comfortable with any of this as the solution. I recognize you need a solution to the accessibility, for the accessibility issue, but I would suggest that there are other solutions that would be both more compatible with the existing architecture of the building, would not diminish that front and make it, it's so commercial looking compared to the rest of the building. And even with the detail that you have surrounding the glass, I'm not sure how wide that detail is, so I don't know the proportion of that to the glass, whether or not it would make a significant impact even. But at any rate, my main point is I'm sorry that you're moving the stairs, removing the stairs. I think it disrupts the whole proportion of that bottom part of the building. And I'm assuming that it can have an outside ramp. You can leave the steps. You can do that. And so to my mind, something like that, in terms of your architect expertise, would be much more appropriate to the building and more aesthetically attractive than I find this. So as presented, I'm not pleased to support this.
Now,
But thank
Vincent,
you for the presentation.
Vincent, I have the feeling you want to answer this, but before you do, I just want to point out that we are not here to redesign. We are here to determine the appropriateness of the particular design that you present. So in any event, please answer the issue.
So in order for a ramp to be considered, we simply don't have the width in the property to make it compliant. And it would require a double run if we were even to entertain it. And just if you understand the core of the building, it's not feasible. It's just not. It would be a major. The building would not look the same, and we would be doubtful that we would even achieve a solution that's viable. In respect to the interior, there are existing steps now. So irrespective of the exterior condition, we still have an ADA issue on the interior. We solved that by having the exterior steps brought in to join the interior 6 steps and include for one lift that allows you to get from the foyer to the upper ground floor. So unfortunately, the way the building is designed or originally designed, kind of have a double consideration to accommodate. And it's this, from our perspective, this proposal sort of solves that in a thought.
And I'll just sort of point out, I think, David, you probably deal with this on a, I don't know how regular a basis, but certainly Vincent and I at the very start of this project looked at different ways of providing accessibility. Of course, the first thing was like, well, we could put a lift outside and just, lower one of these. But I think an exterior lift in an areaway is always unsatisfactory. And then, of course, the ramp. But to manage and negotiate this much height, your ramp would have to practically start at Madison Avenue. It's just there's a very rigid proportion of rise over run, and you can't have an exterior ramp on a property like this. So this is a treatment that is seen in many locations, and I think significantly here, this is a building that has been altered significantly. The material that's being removed is of recent vintage. It's not particularly high quality recent vintage either. And the materials that are going to be put in are going to be far better. And we think this is a very direct way to manage what is a very significant change in grade from the sidewalk up to the first floor, as I think we showed in the plan. So.
Last question, if I may. You talked about an awning on either side on the second egress door and the window. And there is a fixed awning in the front of the building now that I'm pleased that you're leaving. Did you also mention another fabric awning as a possibility over that center door? Did I hear that as a possibility?
No,
No.
just on the
That wouldn't.
flanking bays.
Yeah, this here and here. These are just two fabric awnings.
And what's the depth of those? What's the size of those awnings?
Give me a moment here. We don't have these dimensions, but it must be about 3 or 4 foot extension off of the infill frame. Vincent, if any of you
approximately 3 feet, I would say. On these.
Yeah, here we go.
You
It's
see
3
that
foot,
number?
3 foot 3.
Yeah, it's just over 3.
With a 6-inch skirt, sort of a traditional geometry and dimension.
That's fixed.
Correct.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Yes.
Elizabeth?
Yes, I understand your problems, and I think I think you've found very good solutions, and but I too have a problem with the door. To me, it looks like you've done a wonderful job with wonderful materials everywhere, and then sent the office boy off to Home Depot to buy a pair of doors. And I just hope that you can find a better solution with more texture or more vitality for the front doors. Thank you.
Thank you. David, May Malik and Lori Boris also joined, so I'm going to let them go ahead as well.
Fine.
May, confirm unmuting.
Hi, thank you, Saida. I agree with Elizabeth Ashby's comments. I think if there are things that we can do, to kind of bring out more of that texture, as was noted, but I understand that we can't exactly be making change request here, right, David?
We have to deal with their design
with the
and our
proposal at hand.
resolution. Now,
Totally.
they can just, I'll answer your question. We have to deal with what they have proposed and we vote on that. However, we've made suggestions and they can choose to take those suggestions and change what they have if they feel that the suggestions are worthy.
Thank you, David. I appreciate that. I think for me, I don't have any major concerns around this. I understand the concerns of my colleagues. I get it completely, in terms of the neighborhood and the charm and the quality and all, but it sounds like what is being moved and what is being adjusted or removed are only, semi-recent. And ultimately, it's, for this greater goal of ensuring that we have increased accessibility and that this is ADA compliant. And it sounds like, this is like the smartest and probably the path of like least resistance in terms of like fiscal and human capital for the applicant to get that done. I think if this is a matter of accessibility, I fully am on board in support of it.
Lori? Lori Boris, you can confirm unmuting. Okay, maybe Lori stepped away, so we're going to go to Christina Davis.
Thank you for your presentation. I think all the comments have been made, and I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And David, Alita has raised her hand.
Yes, Alita. Well, Alita can.
Thank you. Thank you. I know I was unmuting. Thank you, David. I'm just wondering, because the space is rented by Lalique, if it's possible on the side of the door to maybe have some kind of vertical glass by Lalique or something that would bring in light and add embellishment and richness without detracting from the work on the building. I know we're not here to redesign, and I'm not suggesting that at all, but you have this tenant that does glass and in such an extraordinary and unusual or unique way. And so I don't know if they'd be willing to do that, but maybe, or even just something on that back wall I'm looking at. I can't tell the perspective and this and the depth of space, but if you had something interesting back there that would help provide some kind of depth of field and something really interesting. It just brings me to mind, I know you're going to yell at me, David, but something in Rome that Bernini or Borromini did with perspective down a long pathway and making a statue look full size when it was really just arm's length. And if you had something back there that was really appealing and beautiful, but I'll just stop, not redesigning. It's just, again, it's to detract from those enormous doors, and I'll stop. Thank you, David, for your patience.
Okay.
This is just to clarify that we have not rendered the interior of the space, but this is not.
That's where I'm heading. Please. Okay. This is a commercial venture. Rest assured that Lalique is going to be very sensitive to what people see through those doors. Design is what Lalique is all about. So I think we can trust that when we look through those doors, we're going to see some very beautiful Lalique glass. I think everybody generally feels that a good job has been done. I think it has been a very good job. I don't want to belabor it. There's absolutely no room to put in a ramp. A ramp has a proportion of 1 to 12. And if you think about the height of those steps, as was pointed out, you'd probably have to go down the block or up the block in order to be able to do it. So I do think it's a very good solution. As far as the doors themselves, I have no problems with them. There are always other ways to do things, but we have to vote on what we're seeing. And I think what we're seeing is a well thought out solution. I think has made the explanation of the original building having 1/1, and that although the glass may feel a little bit on the contemporary side, it is still an appropriate composition within the overall look of the building and the overall use of the glass. And I particularly was sensitive to the issue of the embellishment being in the stone and the simplicity being in the glass. Therefore, despite the fact that that may be a sales pitch, I happen to think it was a very, very good representation of what's right about this building. And I, for one, will vote very much in support of it. My general feeling is that although we had mixed reviews, it may be appropriate to have a resolution in favor if there is somebody who would like to make a resolution.
David, before you do that, Lori, I think, is near her computer and is unmuted.
Let's hear from you.
No, I didn't. I just came in and it said that somebody wanted me to be unmuted, so I'm unmuted. But since I have your attention, I'll just ask this one question, which is, I'm looking at it and it looks like, you know, I'm in support of this, but looking at it, it looks like through the door, there are a whole flight of steps behind the door. Is that the case? Or is that just like optical?
There is half a flight of steps beyond the door, but you will see to the main level because of the height of the doors and the amount of glazing that's in the front of the building.
But in terms of access, is that accessible to, you know, once people get into the building?
Lori, I don't know if you were here, but the architect is putting up the plan of the building, and you'll see as you come in the doors to the left is an elevator for handicapped.
Oh, okay, okay. And can we stop using the word handicap, please? As this is at,
For accessibility.
yes, thank you. Disabled is the preferred term from what I understand.
Disabled.
Thank you.
Fine.
Thank you.
You, David, we have a raised hand from Elizabeth.
Yes, Elizabeth.
Yes, I believe you suggested that there's a resolution on the floor to approve, and I will approve. But since almost all of us had reservations about the main door, perhaps something could whereas clause that many people would request that or recommend that they re-examine the design of the main door, something not to turn it down, but to express the reservation that almost everyone had in our resolution. I would certainly appreciate.
Well, first of all, there's no resolution on the floor. We need one. Secondly, I can certainly, in the whereases, incorporate some reflection of what has been said about the doors.
Thank you.
So I still need a resolution.
Okay, we have a raised hand from Sarah.
Yes, Sarah.
Hi, David. I'd like to make a motion to approve with the incorporation of the whereases as described.
Do I have a second?
You have a second from Alita.
Please call the roll.
Okay, just give me 1 second to unmute everyone.
Could I ask a question?
Yes.
Thank you. I think I've forgotten what color, what metal the doors are. Are those black iron or another metal material?
Black iron.
What?
Black iron.
Black painted. They're painted, Vincent, right? They're iron
Yeah.
painted iron.
Am I allowed to say anything else? Like bronze?
Well, this is after the fact.
I know.
I think we need to vote. I mean, we never go through
I
these kinds of
know.
discussions after the fact. You've had your opportunity, 2 opportunities already. So I don't think we should go backwards, please.
Okie doke.
We have to vote on what's been done.
Sarah, is your hand raised for another reason or?
Oops, sorry, I forgot to put it down.
Okay, so we're doing the vote. Okay,
Right.
I see
Please
another
call
raised
the
hand.
roll. Right.
Okay, Elizabeth Ashby.
Yes.
Okay, Michelle Birnbaum.
You know, I only just realized that there was that flag with that leak because this is a close-up picture. Is that part of the presentation? I didn't see
the flag. I don't know, David. Should I answer or?
Yes, please answer.
Good answer. I can answer. It's existing now. It's taking a little bit license, artistic license.
Yeah, I mean, there are no flags on the building. The flag poles are there. And this is a rendering that was prepared with a French flag and Lalique. So I don't know that the flag poles are going to be used.
Oh, well, I didn't notice it before because of the, it was just a small picture, but I'm asking because if that's going to be there and Lalique on the front awning and on the 2 plaques, are you planning to have that Lalique flag there? You're leaving the flag poles, but you don't know what's going to be on them?
We're representing the owners of the building, not the tenant. The signs that are proposed, the fixed signs are 2.5 inches and 3.5 inches in height, and they'll only be seen from across the street. So there is some value in having a flag so that somebody coming from Madison Avenue can actually find their way to the building. But landmarks regulates flag poles and not flags, so I don't know how the flag poles are going to be used, but this was just added into the rendering to add some life to it.
Okay, so we don't know if we're voting on them being there or not.
Well, we're voting on what
Landmarks
Yeah,
is
does not
there.
I'm going to
regulate.
abstain.
Excuse me,
Landmarks
we
does
are
not
voting,
regulate
we are
flags.
voting on what we are looking
I'm
at.
going to abstain.
You're welcome to abstain, as long as you're abstaining on what we're looking at.
Alita,
Yes.
May,
Yes, and thank you for the presentation.
Lori Boras,
Yes.
okay, Christina Davis. Confirm unmuting, Christina, *6. Christina?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And David?
Yes,
You forgot Marco, I think.
but you forgot Marco, thank you.
Oh, thanks, Alita. Marco, what's your vote?
Thank you, Alida. Thank you, David. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you all. And is there any old business? Any new business?
Nope.
Do we want to set a record on the timing for this meeting?
Yes.
I'm afraid we didn't quite do that, but thank you.
For one item.
See you all Wednesday.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
David.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good
Peace,
night.
Aida.
Bye-bye.
Hello?